All right, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed your break of having to come up here. I know you've been busy. I'm sure you didn't really have that great of a break, but I didn't even get to do my presentation at my conference. I was sick so bad that I didn't even, that somebody else gave my presentation for me. I emailed it to them the morning of and just told them I can't go. And they did the best they could with it. And they said that it went pretty well. So my presentation was fine, I guess, but I made it to a grand total of 2 sessions and was the rest of the time was in my room other than the first night I got there. So it was a rough, long week, and it probably is why I sound so funny on here today. So actually, I want to share my screen back to something else first. So I'm gonna go here and let's just talk real quick about, okay, when is the next 2 portions due? Do you guys remember? The 4th? Okay, I heard several people say the 4th, so I'm gonna trust you on that because I don't have it in front of me. And we are down to here, right? Personnel and budget. Yep. All right, so let's just talk about it. Make sure y'all don't have any questions, okay? Because I feel like these instructions, when I was doing them, I tried to make them, relatively easy to follow and for you to expand upon what we're doing, okay? All right, so you're gonna give me an organizational structure of the department. And when I say department, I want to know your organization for the facility, but specifically your recreation therapy department. And most recreation therapy departments are going to have, you'll have like a manager who's there, who's like your CEO or whatever, your main leader. Then you're going to have however many CTRSs on staff. Then you're going to have like activity therapists who are probably not going to be certified, but can still help run activities and such. And you might have aides, you might have lifeguards that are part of your crew, depending on where you work. You might have other people in the department, so that's what we're talking about on that. A job description for each member of the therapeutic recreation department. You don't have to give me a big job description for everybody else that's going to be working, your other disciplines that are be at your facilities and stuff. But your recreation therapy people, I want job descriptions for them. Tell me how you're going to supervise, who's going to be like keeping an eye on everything. Tell me employee work schedule, salary for your recreation therapy folks. Pretty easy to come up with some general ideas. Y'all can look it up on Indeed or something if you have to. Tell me how you it's got employee orientation, but that's really kind of out of order. Tell me like what sort of interview process you would do to bring people in. Will you do individual interviews? Will you have them in and have a panel interview? Will you do Zoom first? Will you, what are you looking at for people that you want to bring into your facility? Then once you onboard someone, hire them, what kind of things will they have to learn about at orientation? And you could probably Google or look up some good things on that too. New employee orientation. It's going to tell you the kind of things that you need to know there. Then all places basically are going to have in-service programming for their staff. Things about, if you have new clients that come in that have special needs or special things that need to be shared, somebody who has behavior issues, if you're getting a new piece of equipment, if you're trying to teach some new technology, that would be all counted under like in-service training. CPR, first aid, if you're going to do that, like on a yearly, every 2-year basis or yearly, because you're going to have employees coming and going, I'm sure. What kind of in-service programs are you going to do? You probably should have like a training coordinator, just throwing that out there as part of your crew to run things like this, your staff training, if it's a big enough facility. What kind of continuing education opportunities will your staff have? And then talk a little bit about volunteer and internship programs. Are you going to have those there? If so, how do they get onboarded? Can they do everything that your staff can do? Will they only be able to do this? Or you know what I mean? Just tell me about those programs. Any questions on that one? I just wanted to talk through it where we could make sure that y'all didn't have something that stuck out as a question. All right. Budget, that's the other one that's due on that day. I would really like to see a budget. You can have a written portion too, but I'd like to see some sort of table, Excel sheet or something like that for your budget. It's the best way to do a budget, the easiest way to see a budget, okay? It's gonna need direct costs for a unit of programming, basically a set time is what we're talking about here. Or they tell me in upfront, like how many people you plan to see weekly. That's what the second line is, or the third line, the number of units active programming provided weekly by the department. That's kind of like how many people do you plan to see weekly? You know what I mean? That's what that's about. Set rates for the cost of programming. How much would programming cost? Staff salaries salaries are going to be part of your budget. Benefits, transportation expenses, staff development and training expenses, special activities and events, repair expenses. All these things are listed out here, different things that you could put in your table budget to list out, okay? There's no way I can, this is hypothetical, so I'm not gonna be, I just want to see that you kind of know what a budget looks like, and it's another thing, you can find a budget somewhere and make you a budget with the appropriate headings and some common sense numbers. Just need to make sense. Don't give me something just crazy, but I'm not gonna be, how can I tell you your numbers are wrong because it's hypothetical. It's about making sure you can kind of build a budget and see the different portions that you're going to need to have at a facility. Also, very importantly, equipment and supplies to run the program. That's the biggest one, other than salaries, that's the biggest part of your budget, most likely your cost. And you can even indicate places to purchase and order items, which could be like where you got them at can be one place, or where you plan to order things from can be one column on your thing, okay? Doesn't have to be perfect. Everybody's just going to be different. I'd like to see a like Excel chart or something of the sort for that part. Any question on that? Everybody's facility is going to be different. Everybody's budget's going to be different. Just turn in the best you can do, and I'll look at it and tell you if we need to make some adjustments for the final. Okay. That's it for that. Dang, I don't have all these open. Here we go. All right, we'll start on this one at least. And, our main objective here, I'm going to tell y'all the rest of the way, is to get through the rest of this book, which we are making great strides on that, right? We're here at the end of October and we're coming down the stretch on the information in the book, and I'm good with that, because what it's going to do is it's going to allow y'all some time to, I'll tell you this right now. On Thursday, my intent is I want you guys to come in here ready to tell us what your facility is about. Give us a little 2-minute synopsis of what you've done so far, okay? Hi, the name of my facility is so-and-so. It's going to be located here. This is what we're going to offer. This is how many people we plan to see. Just a little rundown. I don't need to know a whole bunch of numbers, but I want to know, you know, like yours is about rehabilitation of, you know, sport injuries, let's say. And yours is more about, yours was based on the beach, right? Doing drug and alcohol rehabilitation. So that's, I want everybody to know what everybody's working on. And then we're gonna figure out some kind of way interactively for you guys to help each other out working on what those two things that we just talked about. That's what we're doing Thursday. Don't take the day off. Come in here and let some people help you with your stuff, okay? Because once y'all find out what everybody's doing, you'll be like you could say, you know, he's been telling me that I need to make this more therapeutic rec based. Somebody come help me do that. You'll have somebody, you can make somebody do it, help you do it. Sorry, that sounded wrong and bad. You get my point. Like, once y'all know what each other are doing, you can kind of help each other by some of y'all will kind of match up and have things in common, and y'all can try to y'all can work together if you'll just do it. It's your opportunity to do it in class, and that'll be Thursday. Okay, sound good? Any problems with that? Questions? All right. So one thing we have to do as a manager in recreation or as a manager anywhere is you have to make sure that you are the service that you put out is the best one that you can, right? So you want to be accountable for what you're offering to your patients and your clients. So some things that factor into that are staffing. You know, you need to be able to, number one, have adequate staffing, have enough people to do the things that you need to do. What are we seeing all the time now? Signs up on windows. Help wanted, closed, closed because we're short-staffed. I saw that somewhere and somebody wrote beneath it and they said, get taller staff. Which I thought was pretty good. I promise I didn't write it. They beat me to it. But you know, you got to, staffing, putting the right people in the right place to put the right product out there, right? Right now, staffing is a struggle for everybody, everywhere. I mean, every job, just about. They're going to have some. I have not heard a big clamoring or anything out here, but I mean, they came out yesterday. Do you see what the university implemented yesterday? Vaccine, got to get it with a date. You know what's happening at most places where that's going on? People are getting fired, quitting, walking out, having, you know, walkout days and stuff like that. Now, I'm not sure what'll happen here, but I feel like there will be something happen here regarding it because there's a lot of employees at this place. You know, so staffing right now, because of things like that, especially, is a factor. You know, people have gotten used to their life of, you know, getting quarantined and being stuck at home and getting assistance and things like that. And some of them like, I kind of like this. I don't have to fool with people. I get a check, you know, like, I get it. Something else that we have to do is scheduling, making sure that we have people, the right people there at the right time to be the most effective. It's like we talked about, certain groups work better together and certain groups you just can't put together because they're not going to get anything done because all they want to do is play. You know, it's just a fact, and you'll learn that as you see work in different places. The API process, are you following that? Are you going through what you have to set proper protocols for this API process of how it's going to be done? It's probably going to be in like a manual or something. You know, this is how our assessments will be done in this manner. We will use this form. You know, our goals and objectives will be posted in each client's chart using so-and-so. Yes, you're talking about the planning part. Implementation, you're going to talk about how you, what days they're going to receive treatment, how it's going to be given, things like that. And then you talk about how you're going to do evaluation to see if everything's working right. We all know what API is. It's just making sure that you're following the API process to a T in the recreation therapy pathway to make sure that you're putting out the best thing that you can. Documentation. If you don't do proper, good documentation, you are doing yourself, you're doing your company, you're doing your facility a disservice. And who's to say if you don't write something down that you did for a patient or everything that you did do, then the patient could say, well, they had me doing this and this and this, and I got hurt. And it could be something that you didn't even do and they may be mistaking you from someone from occupational therapy or something like that. If you don't have it documented exactly what you did, you may end up in the middle of trouble when you could have, just by doing good documentation of what was done, handled that situation. Practitioner performance. You're making sure that your people that work for you are doing what they should do, when they should do it, how they should do it. Pretty easy. You give them expectations that are clear up front, and then you're going to actually watch and evaluate and make sure that they're doing it. It's that simple. Evidence-based staffing. What this is all about is putting the right staff and resources to the right client, with the right intervention to provide safe and quality outcomes. That's a fancy little sentence, but I like it really. Evidence-based staffing links the right staff and resources to the right client using the right intervention to provide safe and quality outcomes. That's using API properly to make sure that you have planned in a smart way and you've thought about who's best at doing this activity. Some people are great at doing outdoor activities and some people are not. Some people are great with, with artsy things. Okay, there's a great example. You're going to have people on staff, and if you have arts and crafts as something that is offered, let me tell you, when I was in the field in rec therapy, I was not the arts and crafts guy, y'all. If we did arts and crafts, it was going to be like, here, take this glue and just squirt it, and I'll throw glitter on it. You know what I'm saying? Like I was not the arts and crafts guy. Some of y'all would be great at arts and crafts, and I'm not that dude. I was not. It was not my thing. So like by that, my manager needed to know that I was not the one that needed to be going to do arts and crafts class. Somebody else needed to do that. So they need to put the right staff in the right spot with the right resources. That's making sure that they have good equipment and good materials to use also. The manger or manager, as I would rather have it on there as, considers the following influences as staffing patterns are determined. Your client case mix, how many people are each person going to be assigned? How are you going to divvy that up? Your staffing composition, how many CTRSs do you need? How many activity therapists do you need? How many do you need in each location? That's of activity that's being offered, things like that. And you also have to look at things like agency factors, which could be all the way to these days layoffs or environmental influences. That's going to affect what you can do and how many staff you need. If there's seasonal activities or something and you've got a weather pattern that comes in and is going to shut you down, you don't need to bring when I was over the pool here in town, it wasn't therapeutic recreation, but I was the pool director, and I had to make decisions based on environmental influences a lot of times, that had to do with staffing. If I saw a day where we were scheduled to have 4 tornadoes and thunderstorms all day, it didn't make sense for me to bring in 8 lifeguards that day to cover that pool. Because we'd have to pay 8 lifeguards for, 10 hours to sit in the guard shack and twiddle their thumbs and eat the food. It would cost us way more money to, what I would do instead on a day like that is bring in like 4, if there was any chance of there being a break in it. Because even if it did break, not the normal number of people wouldn't show up. So through common sense, I know that 4 would be enough to handle the people that we had come. That's basically what you're talking about. You have to judge based on what you're faced with. Staff scheduling is super important because scheduling impacts your job satisfaction big time. And your job status, how satisfied you are with your job is going to have a big impact on your productivity. It also affects staff retention, whether people stay, personal lives, and budgets. When I first started working at NMRC, my first job, when they hired me in, I worked 12:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. was my schedule. And I would do activity therapy in the afternoon. And then we would do nightly recreation activities with the clients every night from like 6 to 8. And that was my schedule. And in my own personal little selfish world, I loved that schedule because it gave me, I always, at that point in my life, I was an energetic guy. I don't know where that person went, but I would either, like during hunting season, I could go hunting every morning before I ever went to work. I could go play a full round of golf if I wanted to before I went to work, or I could have a side job like cutting grass or something like that and make extra money and still come to work 12:30 to 9. However, what does a 12:30 to 9 schedule do to you regarding your, like, say, family life? That's not good, huh? You can't have a normal, you could never, like, at that point, I didn't have kids or anything like that, but a 12:30 to 9 shift right now would be devastating to me. So that's something that you would have to, you would have probably have some people say you needed to have a 12:30 to 9 shift. You would have some people that, like me at that time, would love that schedule because I could sleep till 11:30, maybe, even if it's just that. You'd have some people that would want that. You want your people who want that schedule to be on that schedule if possible. That's kind of what I'm saying, because if you have someone like me now, if I came in and ended up on a 12:30 to 9 shift, what would that do for my retention? I'd quit in a fast time. I wouldn't last long. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can schedule staff. And as we're trying to make schedules, it is extremely hard a lot of times. Kind of like right now, we talked about how everybody's already short. You add to that these same things which are still happening. Staff abuse of sick or leave time. You have a certain schedule put together and then somebody calls in sick. Your other staff think they're off, so you can't, when you call them or something and say, hey, can you come in? Most of them are like, no, I'm at the zoo. Or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like that is a challenge that you can't help, that will always be there. Now, every time somebody calls in sick, they're not lying, but you can figure out sometimes that some people do abuse it for sure. And a lot of places put things in place to keep that from being, a point system or something like that, where it curtails that situation. Relationships of part and full-time staff. and just relationships of the staff in general. You know, if you know that there's some folks that don't get along when you're making your schedule, you have to do it in a fair way, yet at the same time, you would try your best to not schedule two people that you figure are going to get in a fist fight on the clock, you know, just common sense. Generational mixes. You know, do you want to put the 74-year-old with the 19-year-old on the shift? They gonna want to do the same activity? They gonna have anything to talk about on break? You know what? Then again, that being said, do you want to put, if you put the two 19-year-olds, they probably gonna play and run off or something. If you put the two 92-year-olds, they're gonna fall asleep. I mean, I'm stereotyping or whatever, but you get my point. You have to try to mix. You put a couple, the 19-year-old with a 30-something-year-old who's a little more mature, but not so mature that they don't have anything in common. You have to think about stuff like that. Your generational mixes. As far as this APOD, and look at here, we actually have the D on the end on this one, which I like. APOD accountability, the manager is accountable for assuring that the outcomes are achieved in a timely manner. That's going to be set up when you have your yearly meetings with when you come up with your IPPs, your individualized program plans. There's going to be a time set of when you're going to do these things. So you need to make sure that things are staying on schedule. The manager is accountable for implementing APOD according to the standards and regulations. So if you follow those things that we've talked about, nothing to it. So for each part, assessments, you want to make sure that there's an assessment process in place and that people, who's going to be doing it, how do you use it? How do you make sure that it's the proper one that for your facility? Planning, you're going to ensure that the planning documents are there. You want to consider research, evidence, and theory in how you plan things. Basically, like, hey, what have other people done for people with fibromyalgia that worked? Oh, let me look that up. Okay, warm water aquatics were great for them. So we're going to implement in our planning. Why don't we try to work with our fibromyalgia patients with some warm water aquatics? You're using some research, some evidence, and theory that it's going to work. Okay, you're basing it on something. You're going to supervise the staff delivery of the plans that are put together, and your responsibility for, it says you're responsible for documenting delivery outcomes. Yes, you're going to have some documentation, but your actual recreation therapists are going to be having to do progress notes and activity notes also, not just you. You know, you're responsible for making sure that documentation is being done. How about that? So some of the tools that you can use for accountability of making sure that everything goes the way that it should go. You're going to put protocols in place, and protocols are just documents that describe specific intervention applied to a client group or client needs that have been standardized from research, literature review, professional consensus. The main thing to note on that, it's your protocols are specific interventions that are applied to a client group or client needs that have been shown through research to be across the board the way we should do it. Basically, you know, you have researched enough to see that it's evidence-based. Your treatment protocol programs are going to be outlined by API, like we talked about. Diagnostic protocol, how, you know, depending on your facility, what it's like, specific client diagnosis or related problem cluster. See, I disagree with this to a degree. we want to find not only, it says the focus is the client's deficits. So when we're doing diagnostic protocol, and I guess for the term diagnosis, yes, I will go along with this. Okay, so let me take that back. In diagnosis, you are looking for deficits. You're looking for problems. You're looking, if you're diagnosed with something, it's not usually good, right? You've never, I mean, you don't hear people say, man, I got diagnosed with high intelligence today. You know what I like, it's usually diagnosed with the flu or diagnosed with, spina bifida, whatever the case may be, you're going to get diagnosed, and that's going to be where you're finding deficits. Now, that being said, diagnosis and assessment are kind of similar, in that you are searching for things about the patient, about the client, about the person you're going to be working with. In the case of assessment, I think that we're not just looking for deficits, we're looking for strengths. And that's actually what my presentation was going to be primarily about at the conference, was about strength-based assessments and how we need to look for the strengths in our clients, not just the weaknesses, because without building off of their strengths, we can't get anywhere. And it's a much more positive way of looking at assessment. Also, you're not looking for all the faults and all the negatives and all the things they need, although we need that too. We also need to know what they do well, and everybody has things that they do well. You're also, another accountability tool is your clinical practice guideline or critical pathway. That's a flow chart or a grid that outlines your interventions for a client for a specified length of time. It's kind of like a schedule, like when a client, this is what we do when a client comes in. They come to our facility, we do assessments, then they're going to be moved to this section right here. We're going to come up with a plan. We're going to brief them on what their IPP is and make sure that they agree with what we're going to do. Then we're going to do this for X amount of time. Like, you're outlining your whole intervention. If it's, some places are short term, some places are long term. You wouldn't have a critical pathway necessarily for a place where people come and go on a daily basis, if they're just coming in and out. But if it's a long-term care facility type situation, you will actually have like a guideline that you can follow, that everybody's going to be pretty much on the same schedule, on like Katie, when she was here talking about the treatment center. You remember her having a critical pathway for their place, kind of? Did she tell, like when she was telling you about what happens? What happens when the patients come to treatment center? Right off the bat, usually. Where do they go? What do they have to do? Detox. They pretty much have to detox first. So that's their critical pathway, goes like detox / moving into assessment, moving into like they pretty much have to oh, they're doing it on purpose. They just cut. I looked out and I saw a giant limb fall out of a tree right there, and it scared me because I saw people walking too. I thought I was going to watch a death or something. I didn't really want that because I didn't have my camera out or anything. Just kidding. She gave you a good idea of how, like, theirs was in a very specific order of how they had to detox first. Then they're going to do this. Then they're going to go, and certain days of the week, they have this activity. Certain days they have groups. Certain days they go see the horses, all of that type stuff. All right, we've talked about documentation. Think about this, because we haven't really ever had a slide much like this when we have a D now on the end of API. So think a little bit. Effective documentation assures that clients receive quality services. Because if you're holding people to make sure that they are documenting things that are being done or not done, then do you think your therapists are gonna wanna write down, hey, we didn't really do much today. We just kind of sat around and talked. Are they gonna want to put that down for documentation, or what, like, so they'll be more motivated to actually do something because, and it's the documentation in a roundabout way that's making that be that way. It helps to assure that they get good services. It facilitates service coordination. When you make your documentation, you can see it, the other recreation therapists can see it, the other people that work at the facility can come in and see it. So it helps coordinate services for that person all the way around. Primary means of professional accountability and evidence-based practices. So that's where it's documentation that tells us that we can learn the fact that warm water aquatic therapy is good for fibromyalgia. We know that because somebody documented that, period. That's essential to efficacy research to see if something works or not. You need to have documentation of whether it worked, therefore it becomes evidence-based or whatever at that point. It's also essential to satisfaction of regulatory agents and in turn receipt of funds for service rendered. That's a fancy way of saying, if you don't document it, you don't get paid for it. So I think you could cut all the rest of those out off the top up there and just leave that bottom one and put it the way I just said it. If you don't write it down, you didn't do it, you don't get paid. People will document, if managing practitioner performance. That's something else that we have to do as far as accountability of making sure that what we're putting out as a product or as a therapy is the best that we can do. So you can put out a good product or you can put out a half-ass product, for lack of a better way to put it. And y'all know that as well as I can. You know it on your classwork. There's times where y'all turn in things and I'm like, whoa, look at that. And there's times where I look at it and I'm like, whoa, look at that. You know what I mean? And there's the difference. Exactly what I'm saying. So you owe it to the patients. It's not their fault that so-and-so's aunt was sick and she's been out of town for 2 days and this is her first day back at work, or so-and-so baby is sick, so she didn't get much sleep. That's bad things, and those are things that happen in life. But as someone who's coming in for recreation therapy for a service, is it their fault that those things happen? They deserve to get what they're there to get, right? So you need to find a way as a manager to make sure that your practitioners are putting out what they should be putting out and not letting the day affect what they're doing. Are you going to run in there if you see a day and you can just tell that your therapist is not doing the best job that they can do? They're being kind of lazy with what, they're not enthusiastic. They're not really, you can just tell they're not with it. I would say as a manager, you would not run in there and say, well, we'll stop. Hey, I want to talk to you, and break up what they're doing. I'd say let them finish what they're doing, but I would have at least a gentle talk with them after and be like, hey, are you okay? You don't seem like yourself in there today, and try to figure that out. And then they're going to know, hey, he noticed that I wasn't myself today. I can't just skate by not doing what I'm supposed to do. You haven't really snapped on them or anything or embarrassed them and stopped their activity. You're still providing things, but next time they're going to know that they need to give you a little more, right? Some things you can do to make sure practitioner performance is where it needs to be. Coaching is something that can be done that improves staff performance in day-to-day tasks and helps to build teams. Remember when we were talking about that a while back, where we want our employees to be close-knit, to be on the same have the same goals in mind. And when everything is going the right way, it's going to be more like a team, right? And you're going to be more like a coach. That's what you want in a facility. That's what you want as a manager. You want to be the coach of a team because you've got that kind of mesh of all your people. That's a good thing. That's what you want. So you can coach to improve staff performance and day-to-day tasks and build teams, and consultation to improve staff competence through expertise, facilitation, and education, which is saying that's like when you pull a staff aside for a consultation or an in-service training or something like that, because you're seeing that they don't really have the best skills, working with your elderly patients. They're great with the kids. They're excited. They're good. But when they're working with the elderly patients, they're just not giving them the same thing. So you're going to come in and say, from what I've seen, I've worked with a lot of elderly patients. They really respond to this. This is what I would try. So you're sharing some expertise. Facilitation, that would be like what? If you're facilitating for that, you're going to have to do what? Basically, you're going to be giving them what they need to be able to do something. Facilitating, you're helping them by saying, here's the skills you need to do that. You're going to teach them something, or you're going to give them materials that they can use. Facilitation, you're giving them something that they were lacking to be more effective. And then education, they just may need some actual, a staff development day where you go over something that can help, bring in somebody else who can give another view or some ideas of some new activities if what they're doing is stale, and education of some new things that they could do, some things that have worked before that they're maybe not using. So basically, as a manager, you got to make sure that you're setting the right people up in the right place at the right time with the right equipment, doing the right things to put out the best product. That's real convoluted, but it kind of makes sense in a way, right? That's what this one is all about, because it falls back on you as a manager to provide service accountability. You're accountable for putting out the best product. It's going to come back on your head, not theirs. If there's someone above you, it's going to get to you first, and they're going to be like, why am I getting complaints? So if you're making sure that your people are doing their best, they have the best equipment that you can get for them, they have the best education, you're putting the best people together, you're doing your part. Another chapter down, we will definitely stop there today because I am tired of talking. Thursday, be here. We're gonna, like I say, come in here ready to talk about, to tell us what your facility is about, who it serves, and then y'all are gonna work on your stuff. Last time I didn't see many people working together. I want y'all actually working together a little bit. So take your anti-anxiety meds or take a shot of whiskey or something before you get here where y'all will talk. Y'all have a good day.